Every night, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, your kidneys are doing the hardest, quietest work of your entire day, filtering your blood, clearing out waste, deciding what stays and what goes. And most people never think about it until the day a lab result comes back wrong.
Here's the number that should stop you. Creatinine. It's a waste product your muscles make constantly. Your kidneys are supposed to clear it out at a steady, predictable rate. And it's the single number your doctor watches most closely to know whether your kidneys are keeping up. And there is a drink. Not a candy bar, not a fast food combo. A drink. One that gets marketed to people exactly like you as one of the healthiest things you can put in your body. That quietly nudges that number upward, year after year, glass after glass. Most people drinking it right now have never once connected it to their kidneys. Stay with me, because the one that surprised me most when I first read the case reports isn't the one you'd guess. It's not a soda. It's not an energy drink, though we'll get to those too. It's something that looks, on paper, like the healthiest thing you could possibly pour into a glass. And that belief is exactly what makes it dangerous. We'll get there. But I want to build up to it properly, because the way we get there matters as much as the destination. My name is Dr. Kang. I've spent more than 15 years in internal medicine and nutritional biochemistry, which is really just a long way of saying I study what food does to the body at the level of cells, enzymes, and lab values, not just calories. Kidneys, in particular, have been a quiet obsession of mine for most of my career, because they are the most under-discussed organ in ordinary health conversation, and one of the most unforgiving when it comes to slow damage. Nobody feels their kidneys declining. There's no ache, no warning twinge, not until function has dropped substantially, sometimes 50% or more, because the organ is built with so much reserve that it can compensate silently for years. That silence is exactly why I make videos like this one. So let me give you the 60-second version of how this organ actually works, because everything I tell you after this will make more sense once you have this picture in your head. You have two kidneys, each roughly the size of your fist, sitting just under your rib cage in your back. Inside each one are about 1 million tiny filtering units called nephrons, 2 million total, give or take. And together they process an extraordinary volume of blood. Every single day, your entire blood supply passes through your kidneys, roughly 40 times over. And out of that, your kidneys filter somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 gallons of fluid a day, and then, remarkably, reabsorb almost all of it back into your body, keeping only about 1.5 liters. What becomes your urine to carry the waste out? Creatinine is one of those waste products. Your muscles make it constantly, as a byproduct of ordinary muscle metabolism, and healthy kidneys clear it out at a steady, almost boringly consistent rate. That consistency is exactly why doctors use it, along with your age, sex, and body size, to calculate something called your eGFR, your estimated filtration rate, which is really just a proxy for how well your kidneys are keeping up with their 45-gallon-a-day job. When creatinine creeps up in your blood, it usually means one of two things. Either your kidneys are filtering less efficiently than they used to, or something upstream is asking your muscles to produce more of it than usual. Keep that second possibility in your back pocket. It matters more than you'd think, and it's going to come back later in a way that might genuinely surprise you. Now here's the one idea I want you to carry through this entire video, because every single item on this list connects back to it. It's not about which nutrient is good or bad. Almost everything I'm about to describe, potassium, protein, plant compounds, these are things your body needs and generally handles beautifully in food. The problem is concentration and speed. Your kidneys are extraordinary at handling nutrients when they arrive the way nature packages them, diluted in fiber, spread out across a meal, absorbed slowly over an hour or two. What changes the equation is when we take food, strip out the fiber and the bulk, and deliver 5 servings worth of something in one 4-ounce glass in 90 seconds on an empty stomach. Your kidneys don't get a slow, steady trickle to manage. They get a flood, all at once, and they have to handle it in real time. I want you to remember that phrase because I'm going to say it again before we're done. Your kidneys can handle almost anything slowly. It's the all at once that gets them. Let's start the countdown, and I want you to really pay attention to where each of these fits into that concentration idea, because by the time we reach the top of this list, it's going to click into place in a way that changes how you look at your own refrigerator. Number 6. And I want to start here because it's the most obvious once you say it out loud. Sports drinks and electrolyte replacement waters. The bright colored bottles marketed for hydration, recovery, and replenishing what you lose. Here's why this one earns a slot on a kidney video. Most people drinking these are not running marathons. They're sipping them on an ordinary Tuesday because the marketing has convinced an entire generation that plain water isn't good enough anymore. The mechanism here is straightforward. These drinks are engineered to be high in potassium and sodium because that's genuinely useful if you've just sweated through 2 hours of hard exercise. But if you haven't, that potassium load has nowhere productive to go. In someone with healthy kidneys, most of the excess gets filtered out without much drama. But after 60, kidney filtration capacity naturally declines somewhat even in healthy aging. And if you're one of the millions of people over 50 taking an ACE inhibitor or an ARB for blood pressure, common drugs I want you taking if your doctor prescribed them, those medications already reduce how efficiently your body clears potassium. Layer a 30-gram potassium hit from a sports drink on top of that, regularly, and you're asking a kidney with less reserve to manage a bigger load than it's built for right now. The National Kidney Foundation has flagged high potassium beverages as a specific concern for people with reduced kidney function for exactly this reason. So, what should you do tonight? If you're not training hard enough to sweat through your shirt, skip the sports drink and reach for water. If you genuinely need electrolyte replacement, hot climate, real exercise, doctor's recommendation, dilute it, half water, half drink, and you get the benefit without the concentrated load. Number 5. Protein shakes and recovery drinks, the ones marketed heavily to people over 50 specifically for muscle preservation. And I want to be careful here, because protein is not the enemy. Adequate protein intake as we age is genuinely protective against the kind of muscle loss that leads to falls and frailty. I am not telling you to eat less protein from food. What I'm flagging is the habit of stacking a whey or plant protein shake with 30, 40, sometimes 50 grams of concentrated protein on top of an already protein adequate diet, once or twice a day, as a kind of insurance policy. Here's the mechanism. A large, concentrated protein load asks your kidneys to filter more nitrogen waste in a short window, which increases what nephrologists call glomerular filtration pressure. Essentially, the kidney has to work at a higher pressure to clear that nitrogen. In someone with 2 healthy kidneys and normal function, the evidence doesn't show this causes harm over a lifetime. And I want to be honest about that rather than scare you. But in someone with reduced kidney reserve, a single kidney, early stage chronic kidney disease, or the gradual filtration decline that comes with decades of life, that added pressure, day after day, is one more variable pushing an already stressed system harder than it needs to go. This is associated risk in a specific population, not a universal danger, and I want you to hear that distinction clearly. So, what should you do? Get your protein from real food across your meals first: eggs, fish, legumes, dairy, poultry, and treat a shake as a genuine gap filler, not a daily default, especially if you already know your kidney numbers aren't perfect. If you don't know your numbers, that's your homework this week. Ask for a basic metabolic panel at your next visit. Number 4. And this is where I want you to lean in a little, because we're getting into the surprising half of the list. Energy drinks, the ones stacked at every gas station checkout with names promising focus and endurance. Here's why this belongs on a kidney list, and not just a heart health list, which is where you'd expect it. Energy drinks combine 3 things that are each individually manageable, but together create a specific risk: high caffeine doses, taurine, and often a genuinely dehydrating effect from the diuretic properties of caffeine itself. There are published case reports, real documented hospital cases, of acute kidney injury in people who consumed unusually large quantities of energy drinks over short periods, particularly combined with intense exercise or heat, where dehydration plus the metabolic strain of processing that much caffeine and stimulant compound pushed kidney function down sharply and fast. I want to be precise. This is not one energy drink will damage your kidneys. This is heavy, repeated, concentrated consumption, often multiple cans a day, creating a dehydration plus stimulant load your kidneys have to manage without enough water in the system to flush anything through efficiently. Concentration and speed, again, that idea I asked you to hold on to. So what should you do? If you drink energy drinks regularly, match every can with an equal amount of plain water and treat 2 a day as a hard ceiling, not a starting point. If you're using them because you're exhausted, that exhaustion itself is worth a conversation with your doctor. It's often a much more useful signal than another can of stimulant. We're at the halfway point. And I want to pause for just a moment, because numbers 2 and 1 are the ones I get the most messages about after people watch this, the ones almost nobody expects, including, honestly, me, the first time I read the research on them. If you've made it this far, stay for those 2. And if this kind of information is useful to you, this is a good moment to hit subscribe, because I put out one of these deep dives every week, and I read every comment people leave. Number 3, bone broth, the simmered for 24 hours, collagen-rich, gut-healing superfood that has become almost a religion in wellness circles over the last decade. I understand the appeal completely. It's warm, it's savory. It feels nourishing in a way a supplement bottle never does. But here's why it earns a place on this list. Bone broth, especially the long-simmered commercially concentrated versions sold in cartons at premium prices, tends to be notably high in both potassium and phosphorus, because simmering bones and connective tissue for that long draws minerals out of the bone matrix into the liquid. For someone with normal kidney function, this usually isn't a crisis in ordinary amounts. But phosphorus in particular is one of the minerals. Healthy kidneys are excellent at clearing, until they're not, and phosphorus retention is one of the earliest, quietest markers nephrologists watch for as kidney function starts to decline, often well before creatinine itself moves much. Someone drinking a mug or 2 of concentrated bone broth daily, believing they're doing something purely beneficial, maybe adding a real phosphorus and potassium load on top of everything else in their diet, with essentially no attention paid to it, because the marketing around bone broth almost never mentions minerals at all. It's all collagen, gut health, and glowing skin. So what should you do? Enjoy bone broth as an occasional food, not a daily supplement replacement. Check the sodium and mineral content on store-bought cartons since they vary enormously between brands. And if you have any known kidney concern, ask your physician or a renal dietitian specifically about phosphorus in your diet, because it's rarely discussed compared to sodium and potassium, and it deserves to be. Number 2, And this is genuinely one of the more interesting things I've come across in years of reading this literature, because it's not quite what it sounds like. Creatine fortified recovery waters and wellness drinks. The bottled waters and powders marketed heavily for muscle recovery, cognitive support, even cellular energy, now showing up in mainstream grocery stores far beyond the gym supplement aisle. Here is the twist I promised you. Creatine, once it's used by your muscles, breaks down into creatine and is a completely normal metabolic byproduct. That's actually where the word creatine comes from. When you regularly consume creatine, whether from a supplement or one of these fortified drinks, your muscles are producing measurably more creatine than they otherwise would, and that shows up in your blood work as an elevated creatine level. Here is the part that matters most. In a person with healthy kidneys, this rise does not typically mean your kidneys are being damaged. It's largely a production effect, not a filtration failure. Remember that second possibility I asked you to hold on to earlier: more creatinine being made rather than less being cleared. The genuine risk isn't usually direct kidney harm in a healthy person. It's what I'd call a diagnostic trap. If your creatinine comes back elevated on a routine panel and neither you nor your doctor knows you've been drinking a creatine fortified beverage every day, that number can trigger unnecessary alarm, additional testing, or worse, it can mask a real, separate kidney problem developing underneath it, because everyone assumes the creatine explains the number. And for anyone with pre-existing kidney disease, added creatine load is something a nephrologist genuinely wants to know about and factor in, because the margin for that kind of confusion is much smaller. So what should you do? If you regularly drink creatine fortified beverages or take creatine as a supplement, tell your doctor before your next blood panel. That single sentence takes 10 seconds and prevents a false alarm or a masked real problem. It's one of the simplest, least talked about pieces of advice in this entire list, and almost nobody does it. And now, the one I promised you at the very top. The one that surprised me the most when I first went looking at the case literature, because on the surface, it is the least likely candidate imaginable for a kidney warning. Green juices and cold-pressed vegetable cleanses. The kale, spinach, and beet-heavy juices sold as the ultimate wellness reset. The 3-day cleanse, daily green shot before breakfast. I want you to notice something about your own reaction right now, because I had the same one. Vegetables. We tell people constantly to eat more vegetables, and rightly so. So how does a glass of pure, cold-pressed vegetables end up on a list about kidney harm? I want to walk through it slowly, because it's the most important idea in this whole video. Here's the mechanism, and I want to walk through it slowly because it's the most important idea in this whole video. Spinach, kale, chard, and beets are all naturally high in a compound called oxalate, a molecule plants produce that, once inside your body, binds tightly with calcium to form calcium oxalate crystals. This is the exact same compound responsible for the most common type of kidney stone. In a normal salad or a cooked vegetable side dish, you're eating a modest, fiber-diluted amount of oxalate spread across a meal, and healthy kidneys clear it without any trouble at all. This is not a reason to stop eating spinach. But juicing strips away the fiber and concentrates the vegetable down to its liquid essence. And a single 16-ounce green juice can pack in the oxalate content of several full cups of raw spinach or kale, sometimes more, delivered all at once, day after day. Especially during a multi-day cleanse where someone is drinking these as their primary source of nutrition. There are documented case reports in the kidney literature, including cases published in peer-reviewed nephrology journals, of patients who developed something called oxalate nephropathy after weeks of heavy green juicing. The oxalate crystals deposit directly inside the kidney's filtering tubules, triggering inflammation and, in the reported cases, a measurable, sometimes significant drop in kidney function and a rise in creatinine. I want to be precise about what this evidence does and doesn't show. These are case reports, documented individual instances, not large population studies, proving this happens to everyone who drinks green juice. And for the vast majority of people having an occasional green juice, this is not the risk profile we're discussing. The risk climbs specifically with sustained, heavy, juice-based cleanses, particularly in people who are also dehydrated, have a history of kidney stones, or have any degree of reduced kidney function already. So what should you do tonight? If you enjoy green juice, keep it, but keep the vegetable. Don't strip it. A green smoothie that keeps the fiber, or simply eating spinach and kale cooked or raw as food, gives you the same nutrients diluted the way your kidneys are built to handle them. If you're doing a multi-day juice cleanse specifically built around high oxalate greens, that's the habit I'd actually change. And drinking substantial water alongside it matters enormously, because adequate hydration is one of the single most protective things you can do for oxalate clearance. This is a case where I want to be very clear that cutting back on water is never the answer. Hydration is protective here, not the problem. This isn't fear, it's food chemistry. And I want to say that phrase again because it's the whole point of this channel. Your kidneys aren't punishing you for drinking something healthy. They're responding, predictably, biochemically, to concentration and speed, the exact idea we started with. Vegetables aren't the villain in that last story, any more than protein is the villain in the shake story, or electrolytes are the villain in the sports drink story. The villain, every single time, is a concentrated, all-at-once version of something your body actually handles beautifully in its natural, diluted form. So let's talk about how you actually use all of this, because a list without a plan is just anxiety with footnotes. Here's how I'd build this into an ordinary week. First, treat concentrated drinks, juices, shakes, fortified waters, as occasional additions to a diet built mostly on whole food, not as daily replacements for it. If you're having a green juice, have it alongside a meal rather than as a meal, and consider keeping the pulp in as a smoothie instead of juicing it out. Second, know your baseline numbers. A basic metabolic panel gives you your creatinine and your estimated filtration rate. If you're over 50 and haven't had one in the last year, that's a genuinely useful thing to request at your next visit. Not because I want you worried, but because these numbers only mean something when you have a baseline to compare against later. Third, if you're on blood pressure medication, particularly an ACE inhibitor or an ARB, or if you take a potassium-sparing diuretic, have an honest conversation with your doctor about high potassium drinks specifically, because that combination is a real, well-documented interaction, not a theoretical one. Fourth, hydrate with plain water as your default, and treat flavored, fortified, or enhanced drinks as the exception rather than the rule. Your kidneys have never once needed you to make hydration complicated. And here, I'll bring in something from my own training that I think fits genuinely well, not as decoration, but because it's actually how a lot of Korean home cooking has approached vegetables for centuries. Rather than juicing greens into a concentrated shot, the traditional approach is namul, vegetables blanched briefly, then seasoned lightly as a small side dish, eaten in modest portions alongside rice and other foods across a meal. It's slower, it's diluted, and it happens to be almost the exact opposite of a juice cleanse in every way that matters biochemically. I want to be honest with you though, because I don't want you thinking Korean is a magic word here. Plenty of traditional Korean fermented side dishes, kimchi included, are genuinely high in sodium, and if you're managing blood pressure, that tradition needs the same scrutiny as anything else on your plate. The lesson isn't Korean food is safer. The lesson is that eating vegetables the way they've been eaten for generations, whole, varied, spread across a meal, happens to line up remarkably well with what we now understand about kidney physiology. That's not coincidence. That's centuries of trial and error arriving slowly at the same place the biochemistry does. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Grace, because her story is the one that made this list feel urgent to me rather than academic. Grace was 66, healthy, active, the kind of patient who did everything right on paper. She walked daily, she'd cut out red meat years earlier, and about 8 months before I saw her, she'd started a daily green juice habit. Big one, 2 full glasses a day. Kale and spinach heavy, because a wellness influencer she trusted had built an entire following around it. She felt fine. That's the part I want you to sit with. She felt completely fine, right up until a routine panel ahead of a minor surgery came back with creatinine numbers that made her surgeon pause the whole procedure. We worked backward together, ruled out the obvious things, and eventually landed on the juicing habit, the timeline lining up almost exactly with when the numbers had started drifting. We didn't take vegetables away from her. We took the juicer away, replaced it with the same greens cooked into soups and side dishes, added real hydration through the day, and over the following months, her numbers moved back toward where they'd been. What she told me at her follow-up has stuck with me ever since. It felt like something she was adding back into her health, not another thing being taken away from her. That's the reframe I want for you too. This isn't about fear of vegetables. It's about understanding what healthy actually means at the level your kidneys experience it. I do want to be honest about where this advice has limits, because that honesty is the whole reason I make these videos instead of selling you something. Everything I've described tonight is general guidance based on published research and case literature. It is not personalized medical advice for your specific situation, and it cannot replace a conversation with your own doctor, particularly if you already have any degree of kidney disease, if you're on dialysis, if you take blood thinners, or if you're managing a condition where fluid or mineral balance is already being carefully controlled. If you have a history of kidney stones, oxalate specifically, is worth discussing directly with your physician, because your personal risk profile there is different from someone without that history. If any of tonight's items describe a habit you have, the daily protein shake, the regular energy drink, the green juice cleanse, that is not a reason to panic tonight and swear off everything at once. It's a reason to bring it up, specifically by name, at your next appointment, and ask what it means for you. Let's bring it all together quickly. Number 6 was sports drinks, high in potassium and sodium for a workout you may not be doing. Match them with water, or skip them if you're not sweating hard. Number 5 was protein shakes, stacked on top of an already adequate diet. Get protein from food first. Treat shakes as a gap filler. Number 4 was energy drinks, combining stimulants and dehydration. Match every can with water and cap it at 2. Number 3 was bone broth, quietly high in potassium and phosphorus behind a wellness label. Enjoy it occasionally, not as a daily replacement. And number 2 was creatine fortified drinks, which genuinely raise your creatinine number through muscle metabolism rather than kidney damage in most healthy people. The fix there is simple. Just tell your doctor before your next blood test. And number 1, the one I promised you at the start, was concentrated green juice and juice cleanses, where stripping the fiber out of oxalate-rich greens delivers a compressed load documented in real case reports to cause kidney injury and heavy sustained use. Keep the fiber, keep the water, and it becomes a completely different, much safer habit. If you only change one thing tonight, make it this. Stop drinking any of these as a daily replacement for a real meal, and start treating whole varied food as your baseline, with these as the occasional exception rather than the rule. Your kidneys can handle almost anything slowly. It's the all at once that gets them. And now you know exactly which all at once habits deserve a second look. I'd genuinely love to know which of these 6 surprised you the most. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you know someone who drinks green juice every single day, thinking it's the healthiest habit in their routine, send them this video. It takes 10 seconds, and it might be the most useful 10 seconds you spend all week. If this kind of research-backed, no-nonsense look at food and aging is useful to you, subscribe. I put these out every week. Real information about healthy aging after 60, no supplements to sell, just what the research actually says. Next week, we're going to look at 5 everyday drinks that are quietly raising your blood pressure, and at least 2 of them are sitting in your refrigerator right now. I'll see you then.